Hello. I'd like you to meet Tim. Tim is a 7th grader. He is really, really smart. He is wicked wonderful. He is totally techie. And Tim is extremely respectful. And in fact, Tim quite frequently respectfully refuses to do most of the assignments I give, right? Tim isn't engaged totally with what I do, which is totally surprising to me because, you know, as an educator, I like to blow up things, right? So I want you to picture it's spring, May, and we're doing that thing called standardized testing. And I know that during this time frame, kids are going to get pulled in and pulled out and moved and shifted, and my classes are going to be in upheaval because that's what we do in the spring during testing time. So I have created something I know that kids can drop in and drop out of, right, and still participate. So what I've told them to do is please create a game around plant cells, right, just a review game. We can play Monopoly. You can build it any way you like, right? So Tim goes home, comes back the next day, and he puts a thumb drive in my hand, and I say to him, hey, this is great. Like, do you want me to print money? Do you want me to print instructions? And he says, no, I went ahead and hacked into Mario and made a game. And my first thought was, I think that might be illegal. And my second thought was, what do I care? He did the assignment, right? I didn't tell him it had to be legal. One of the things that I really believe in is actually a quote by Ruth Bader Ginsburg that says, I believe in listening and learning from others, even when they're 7th graders, right? So what happened is I plugged this game in to my Promethean board, my smart board on the side of the room, and every kid is engaged with this game, right? I have kids from the whole school within a week knocking on my door. They're not even in my classroom, and they're knocking on my door and they're saying, hey, Ms. Schrader, can I come in and play that game? And you know how you stand there and you think, wait a minute, so you want to take your time out of your day, out of your lunch, out of after school, after before school to come in and play a game about plant cells? And my first thought is, well, yeah, okay, go ahead. And my second thought is, how come they're not knocking down my door to do my science lessons, right? So I know, totally shocked. So I call my, like I said, I blow things up. How can they not love that? So I call my principal down and I say to him, hey, I'm not serving this kid. And if I'm not serving this kid, there's probably other kids I'm not serving, right? They're engaged in this game-based world. I don't consider myself a gamer, right? So I want you to think back to the last time you had to learn something. How you had to learn something really difficult, right? Did you read a manual about that? Did you look at something, follow instructions? Because in the animal world, and I'm a biologist, animals play. That's how they learn. And I think about that because I also think about the fact that humans are the same way, right? We engage with play and we engage with fun to learn things. So one of the things I know as an educator is I don't get to pick what motivates my students. And in fact, I don't get to pick what motivates anybody. Like if you look at this equation, if you handed me this in a piece of paper and said, hey, solve this, that would motivate me, right? I know, and it's always been that way. In fact, I have a brother who lives across the country, and one of the things we do every Wednesday morning, we have a coffee date, and we try to solve problems. You know that problem like, hey, if the train leaves the station at 5 a.m. and the train coming across, that's what we do for fun. Right? This is not what I do for fun, right? But it's what kids do for fun. And one of the things that I've learned is I need to speak their language and teach them in a medium, right? That they're comfortable with, that they love. So one of the things that I learned was that 90% of all kids, 90%, that's a really high number, in case you're not a numbers person, 90% of all kids play video games. 70% of all households, heads of households, play video games. The #1 growing demographic for video game play is 40-year-old women, okay? When you look at this Call of Duty, there are over 600, now you talk about large numbers, 600 million hours played in Call of Duty. I am not one of those hours, not even one, okay? So now let me introduce you to Robert. Robert is on the spectrum, okay? And I know before he comes in, that I'm gonna educate Robert. And by the way, not only am I gonna educate Robert, I've got an entire class of 28 other kids that I have to educate. And one of the things that I hear is that 2 weeks before Robert walks in my classroom, he is exposed to trauma that will change his life forever. Okay, now I want you to picture Robert in a classroom, and I want you to picture my classroom, right? I've got goggles, we've got test tubes, we've got microscopes, we blow things up, right? Robert can't manage any of those things. And in fact, Robert can't even manage colored pencils Because if I sit him next to somebody, he will stab people. He just cannot manage all of these things that he is dealing with. And it is my job to educate him and 28 other kids at the same time. So I introduced a game called Cell Command, and I'm a little concerned about this because I can tell you as a non-gamer, when my children were growing up, there were no video games in my home. I told them to go find something productive to do with their lives. Both of my kids are gamers, by the way. And one of the things that happened was I was so worried these kids would just get so entrenched in this game, but that's actually the opposite of what happened. Robert starts playing this game and he's a whiz, right? Because it's his space, it's his place. And all the other kids in the room want to know about it. And as you know, middle schoolers, they're not really subtle about trying to find things out. They are actually yelling across my classroom, hey Robert, how'd you get that mitochondria to go up the endoplasmic reticulum to get to the nucleus? And I'm like, I couldn't have created this better, right? And it's this fabulous interaction. So one of the things I've learned about game-based learning is that it hits all these 21st century skills, right? Kids are collaborating, right? And they're not only collaborating, they're communicating and they're working together. And I couldn't create that better if I tried, right? There's something in games. The other thing about games is that, I don't know if you know this, but kids will do it. They'll come in on Monday morning and I'll say, hey, how was your weekend? And they'll say, yeah, I just played video games till 4 a.m. And I'm like, on purpose? Right? And they're like, yeah. And I think, why? Right? But you know what? Just because it doesn't speak to me doesn't mean it doesn't speak to them. So here where we are. I now work for an ESD. I serve 59 school districts. And here's some of the great game-based things that are happening in my region. We have this biome cart where kids work together collaboratively. And it's a little competitive. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but middle school kids are extremely competitive. And they're trying right here to diagnose a disease. They give them all the clues like a doctor, and they're racing to find the cure, and they're racing to diagnose a person. And then we threw these things called a hackathon, where we brought high school kids, 60 high school kids. We've done this for 3 years. They stay overnight. And you know what they do? They create a game and they program all night long. And when we took a survey about what they loved most, I thought, oh, they're going to say it's because we fed them pizza all night or because we brought them in breakfast. No. What they told us, this was great. We just got to go for it. We got to do what we really wanted to do. And they built teams, and they were doing amazing, amazing things. So a couple years ago, Governor Inslee gave us $4 million, and he said, you know what, climate science is a thing, and we need to be educators about that. And as a person who provides professional development, we said, let's build a game. And let's build a board game, because this is an equity issue. Not all of our kids have access to technology, right? So we built this board game about how to save the planet. And one of the things, the goal of this game is that either everybody wins or nobody does, right? And it takes a while for kids to figure that. It takes a while for adults to figure that out too, by the way. And then we had Immersed Games build us some video games for those kids that do have access. And they built these sandboxes, and what they do is they show the data. Like if I go into a planet and I start doing this, that, or the other thing with it, this is what's going to happen. And that's a really powerful thing, because you know what? They can blow these planets up and there's no harm, no foul. They will, and I'm hoping they don't mess with ours, right? That's our hope. So one of the things I'd like to say is that Megan Smith, she was the senior technology advisor under the Obama administration, and I got to hear her say this. She said, why are we making up problems for kids to solve? Why don't we just go ahead and hand them the billion-dollar problems we're facing? You know what? You want to learn how cancer cells work? There's a game for that. You want to know how water quality works and how to keep clean water? They have a game for that. Do you want to know how about social and emotional learning? They've built games around that. Do you want to help special opportunity kids learn? They have games for that. And you know what? You want to solve the financial crisis? They have games for that. And by the way, Minecraft has a whole unit called Minecraft Education Edition that lessons are there for everything. Like how to be a counselor, how to be a science teacher, all of it. Right? I got a chance to meet the guy who created Minecraft Education, but when I asked him, Minecraft really, we're 40 years old and we're playing Minecraft, and he says, you know what, Tammie, what I learned is if you can't beat him, you join him. Thank you.